Hi guys, today we are dealing with the topic mechanism of breathing from the chapter breathing and exchange of gases of subject biology for 11th class students. I am Anjana AR, undergraduate student of Vimla College, Thrissur, Kerala. Mechanism of breathing. Breathing is carried out by the compiling of two processes. They are inspiration and expiration. Inspiration means atmospheric air is drawn into the body. Expiration means atmospheric air is drawn out from the body. The take in air is drawn out from the body is the expiration. The inspiration, the atmospheric air is directly drawn into the body. The movement of air into and out is created by a pressure gradient between lungs and atmosphere. So first the inspiration. When the pressure inside the lungs become less than that of the atmospheric pressure, the inspiration happens. The intrapulmonary pressure, which means intra means the inside, pulmonary is the lungs. So the pressure inside the lungs become less than that of the atmosphere. Then the inspiration happens. That is negative pressure inside the lungs with respect to the atmospheric pressure. Next is the expiration process. Expiration happens when the pressure inside the lungs become higher than that of the atmospheric pressure. The diaphragm and specialized muscles such as external and internal intercostals between ribs helps in the generation of such gradient. Firstly, we are dealing with the topic inspiration process. This process is carried out by a sequential order of processes. We can study easily it by making it in a flow chart. So I am explaining it by making it in a form of flow chart. This will be easier way to study it. The inspiration is initiated by contraction of diaphragm. In this picture we can see this portion is the diaphragm portion. Diaphragm get contracted first, which means the diaphragm move downward. This is the contraction of the diaphragm. The downward movement of diaphragm happens. This makes an increase in the volume of thoracic chamber. We can see here by the downward movement of the diaphragm there is a increase in the thoracic chamber volume. We can see it here, and this leads to the contraction of external intercostal muscles, which means the muscles present inside the body get contracted or expanded. This leads to the lifting up of the ribs and sternum. This is the ribs and this is the sternum. This get lifts up and which gives more space to the lungs to expand. This leads to the increase in the thoracic chamber in the dorsoventral axis. The dorsoventral axis which from the posterior end to the anterior end. So the total volume of the thoracic chamber getting increased by this all processes. So the lung volume also get increased by the contractions happens to muscles and the thoracic chamber volume increases, and the diaphragm contraction. By all these processes the lungs volume get increased. We can see here by the lifting of ribs and sternum, diaphragm contraction, the lungs volume get increased. We can see here. So this makes a decrease in the intrapulmonary pressure, means the pressure inside the lungs, to less than atmospheric pressure, because when the lungs volume increases the existing pressure inside the lungs get expanded to all over the newly evolved spaces. So this leads to a decrease in the pressure inside the lungs. So the more space is evolved for the coming of the air from the outside. So air from outside moves into the lungs. This is totally happened in a inspiration process. So firstly the diaphragm contracted and the thoracic chamber volume increases, and the ribs and sternum contracted, lifts up, and the thoracic chamber dorsoventral axis, it increases the volume, and by all these processes the lung volume increases, then the existing pressure expand to all over, so the pressure decreases, then the air from the outside enters into the lungs. Hence an inspiration takes place inside a human body. Next is the expiration. Expiration is initiated by the relaxation of the diaphragm. Here we can see the diaphragm relaxes. It retains its normal position by the upward movement of the diaphragm. Okay. Then it makes the relaxation of intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles in the chest get relaxed. Then the diaphragm and sternum returns to its normal position. We already seen this, and the sternum also returns to its normal position. Then it makes a reduction in the thoracic volume. Here we can see the lung volume and the thoracic chamber volume also decreases by this relaxations. Then it leads to the reduction in the pulmonary volume, which means the lungs volume. Here we can see this here. This leads to the increase in pulmonary pressure above the atmospheric pressure, which means when this all relaxations takes place inside the thoracic chamber, the existing air inside the lungs get congested. They become in a congested form. So the pressure inside the pulmonary space get increased. It become above the atmospheric pressure due to the spacelessness of the lungs. So it causes the expulsion of air from the lungs. Due to this congested atmosphere inside the lungs, the air is compelled to escape from the lungs. So by all these processes, hence an expiration happens in the human body. Normally a human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. We can increase its strength by additional muscles in the abdomen. Volume of air involved in breathing movements can be estimated by spirometer. Next is the topic is the respiratory volumes and capacities. Firstly, the tidal volume. Tidal volume is the volume of air inspired or expired in normal respiration. It is approximately 6,000 to 8,000 milli of air per minute in a healthy man. Next is the inspiratory reserve volume or IRV. Additional volume of air a person can inspire by forcible inspiration. From the name we can understand that it is related to inspiration. So it is the additional volume of air a person can inspire by forcible inspiration. It is approximately 2500 to 3000 milli per minute. Next is the expiratory reserve volume. Expiratory, from this term we can understand that it's about expiration, and these two names are so related ones. So only difference between this is inspiratory reserve volume is about the inspiration and the expiratory reserve volume is about the expiration. So when we connect it and study, it will be easy to understand for us. So expiratory reserve volume, or ERV, it is the additional volume of air a person can expire by forcible expiration. It is approximately 1000 to 1100 milli per minute. Next is the residual volume. From the name we can understand that it is something remaining, the residue remaining after some process. The name itself we can understand that it is something remaining after some process. So it is the volume of air remaining inside the lungs after forcible expiration. It is approximately 1100 to 1200 milli per minute. So from the name itself we can understand something about the topic, or the something which is meant by it. Next is the inspiratory capacity. IC, total volume of air a person can inspire after normal expiration. This include tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. Next is the expiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity and expiratory capacity is another two related ones. The only difference expiration, and that is inspiration. In the expiration capacity EC, total volume of air a person can expire after normal inspiration. This include tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. Next is the functional residual capacity, or FRC. It is the volume of air remain inside the lungs after normal expiration. This include expiratory reserve volume and residual volume. This residual volume and functional residual volume is another related ones. The only difference is the in the residual volume, it is the air remains in the lungs after forcible respiration, but in the functional residual capacity, it is the volume of air remain in the lungs after normal expiration. So functional residual capacity and the residual volume is another related ones. Next is the vital capacity, VC, the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after forcible expiration, or maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after a forcible inspiration. This include expiratory reserve volume, tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. Next is the total lung capacity, the total volume of air accumulated in the lungs at the end of forced inspiration. It is the total lung capacity. This include residual volume, expiratory reserve volume, tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume, or vital capacity plus residual volume. So this capacities and this definitions are quite confusing, but when we connect it and study, this will be easy for us. So today's our topic is over. Hope everyone understand what I had said. So thank you very much.